Hello, I'm Scott Clover, and you're listening to the Intuitive Energy Podcast. This podcast series is about intuition, healing, and creating new energetic patterns that benefit you in your daily life. In my private practice, I help people heal from a diverse range of issues, including self-acceptance, trauma release, managing anxiety, emboldening self-worth, and creative expression. In today's episode, we talk about the importance of embodiment, energetic displacement, why detachment is connection to not only your intuition but also yourself, and why it's good to go inside to see outside. Enjoy.
Scott Clover, Intuitive Energy Healer. So good to be talking to you again. We are in season 3, episode 2. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's great. I'm well, and thank you. Things are good.
And we've got some key words because, to be fair, our conversations can tend to wander a little bit. We've got some key words today: embodiment, displacement, and detachment. And I'm especially intrigued by detachment being connection. Detachment is connection. So we'll cover all of those. And I think probably the place to start is to follow on from the last episode and how all the words in our common vocabulary, or probably not so common vocabulary, it may vary from culture to culture, how the words that we speak embody energy.
Yeah, this is a little follow-up from last week's episode. If you haven't heard it, you can go back and listen to it. It's about words describing energy. And there were a couple things I wanted to follow up with and lead into what we're talking about today. And that is, words describe the energy occurrences that happen in our lives that we take for granted, in that they're describing something very specific, and we sort of think of it just as a phrase, or that it may not have meaning behind it. And a lot of these phrases have a lot more meaning behind them than we notice. And if you stop and think about these phrases, it really tends to maybe help you understand how you see and feel energy and where your intuition comes from. So, the example I give is French people. A lot of times the French people will say, écoutez, like listen to me. And their culture is very focused on their language. They're very strict and precise. They have a government that has an office that's a minister of language to make sure the French language is protected. So they're always like, écoutez, like listen to me. Because they're a very language-oriented culture, right? And then if you apply that to individuals, listen to the words that you say when you talk about communicating with people. If somebody that you're talking to says, oh, I see what you're saying, or you end up saying a lot, oh, I see what you're saying there. The person next to you, or your sibling or your child, may also say, well, I hear what you're saying. Oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, are you seeing what you're saying or hearing what you're saying? And that can be determinant on how you're picking up information. I'm more of a seer. My profession is that I see patterns and things. So I would be more prone to say, oh, I see what you're saying. Whereas somebody who picks up intuition with their ears, they're going to maybe possibly say something more to the lines of, I hear what you're saying.
I see. So that's our first bit of homework possibly then, is to listen to ourselves speaking. And like our outer language is actually our inner language as well, possibly.
Yeah, be discerning of, or at least be curious of hearing the expressions you end up saying in a course of a day. And that may lead into how you are perceiving things. You can even get more extreme with people that they say, oh, I can almost taste that feeling. Or I can almost hear those colors, or I can see what that tastes like.
Yeah.
Right? Then you mix up your senses. And there's the clairs. Have you heard of the clairs?
Go on.
Well, the clairs are the clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant. It's the ways that they claim that people with intuition pick up different aspects. And as I said, in more extreme or subtle cases, people can actually taste energy or smell energy. Or that can also bring up a very strong memory for somebody. If you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden you smell cigar smoke or pipe tobacco, which we haven't smelled pipe tobacco in 30 years, right?
Yes.
That means that maybe their grandfather is there, and you're picking up on their grandfather's vibe, and you're picking up the smell that they relate to their grandfather.
Wow.
And some people can actually do that. Me, not one of them, or maybe a little bit. But have you ever walked into a foreign place and gotten thrown back in your memory to 30 years ago?
Yes. Yeah. It's camphor, I think, is the one that does it for me in Portugal. And it takes me, it's so strange. I live in Portugal, grew up in UK, but the smell of camphor takes me to the Far East in an instant.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've had smells where it reminds me of people I knew back in college, or, that house I used to live at.
Yes.
30 years ago, and I smell it at the mall. And you're like, what is that smell? And my memory just whips right back to it. The point is that there's different ways that people pick up intuition, and some of those are mixed for certain people, and some
Yeah.
people are just very strict or very clear about one or two of those clairs. So you can look them up. There's clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, clairaudience, which is clear hearing, clairsentient meanings you kind of feel it, and then there's claircognizance, which is just a sense of knowing. Right. I
Yes.
think personally, in my case, I'm more clairvoyant and claircognizant because of how I process energy for my work. But there's a little bit of all of those. Sometimes you hear a song in your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That can be so powerful, can't it? Take you right back to somewhere. And
Very much so.
on all of the feelings associated with it.
A
Yeah.
person, an
Wow.
emotion, a time of life. Yeah.
Oh
All
yeah,
of those
yeah.
things.
So those are the clairs then, and as well as bringing memories, they can bring active information as well. Is that the point here? You can be taken back somewhere, but it could also be summoning something up for your attention as well.
Yeah. Or taking account of a snapshot of what's happening in your life at the moment. Some of these phrases shouldn't just be taken at face value, they have a lot of underlying meaning to them. We were talking about that expression, it takes a lot out of you. Well, what takes a lot out of you? To me, in my sense, that's the energy in your body is being taken out of you because of something,
Yes.
right? Oh, that takes a lot out of me. Well, what did you mean? Did you run up a hill? Are you exhausted? Are you energetically depleted because you were in a room with someone? Those are
Mm.
two different things that take a lot out of you.
So what can you do about that, Scott? People may well be beginning to get a picture of what you're talking about, and I've just done the very thing we're talking about. People are getting a picture of what you're talking about. They may not. They might be hearing or feeling something instead. But I went with people getting a picture of what you're talking about.
There you
And
go.
yeah, these, being in that situation, going to work, being with those people, being at the family gathering, it takes a lot out of me. And I'm sure people can relate to that. What can be done about it? Because we don't need to accept it as a given, do we, that occurs?
Right. The major example in the healing work that I do is the tribe. The first chakra tribe takes a lot out of you. If you're a child and you grew up in a household and you had to placate the unplacatable, I don't know if I just made up a word there, but if you were conditioned in your household to take care or be responsible for someone older than you, then you're to some degree outside of your body. And so that took a lot out of you, but it kept a lot out of you. So children of needy family members or an unstable parent or a narcissistic family member or parent, most of those situations take a lot out of the child that's experiencing that conditioning in that household.
Wow.
And sometimes when it extends outside of ourselves, we have a hard time putting it back in as adults or even keeping it in or even knowing or appreciating that our energy belongs inside of our bodies.
That's just so powerful and something that people have grown up to do and may well take it for granted as normality, right?
Yeah, like particularly if it revolves around a family member that you grew up around between ages of 0 to 7 or 0 to 15. It's hard to get that back unless the family structure changes. So either that person dies or the person is found out as being, the narcissist that they are or discredited somehow.
Mm.
But if not, your subconscious is pretty much conditioned or trained to be outside your body. And this is where that term at the beginning, displacement, I want to talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us about displacement then.
So displacement, the way I'm talking about it in this case is, and I don't remember the physicist that figured this out, but he got in his bathtub and he realized the bathtub was half full. And when he got in, the water spilled out the sides.
Mm.
Now, why is that? Because his body displaced the water and the air inside the bathtub. So there's only so much mass you can put in a room. So
Wow, okay.
this physicist gets in the bathtub and he pushes out the air and the water that was already in that area.
In Archimedes, right? The eureka moment, in fact.
Yes, Archimedes, correct.
Yes. But we can have our own eureka moment based on this.
The point is that
Yes.
if your energy was expected to be outside of your body as a child, and I'm going to get to adults in a minute, but if you were expected to, as I said, take care of someone else in your house as opposed to just being a child, then a lot of your energy is worn. We say it, oh, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, not inside your chest. It's outside your body. That's another expression. So a lot of people grow up with their energies outside their bodies, making them overgivers, not feeling who they are inside, not feeling a sense of authenticity, even though they're giving and giving and giving. They're not feeling a true sense of self. They're not coming home, if you will. And displacement in this sense can take on a lot of forms in our society. If you're just talking about it simply being in your body from a medical perspective, and you have a sore knee, if you have a sore knee, to put your hands on your knee for 5 minutes, 3 times a day, and commune with the energy and ask the knee, why is it hurt? What can it get for it? Looking up an anatomy book and seeing the anatomy of the knee and then restructurizing it in your mind and creating a healthy environment. Instead, we're told to take a pill and distance ourselves from our bodies. So
Yes,
now your subconscious is a little confused because you're distancing your own empathy from your own body. There's recent studies out that if you take Tylenol, paracetamol, acetaminophen, NSAIDs, all these painkillers that relatively growing up into our day and age, they're perfectly healthy. Well, now not only the liver damage and everything else that they cause, but they cause a lack of empathy. They create apathy by taking these pills. So you're numbing your insides, but you're also numbing your intuitive antennas on the outside. So if you're not communicating with your own body or now other people, then you're really distancing yourself from yourself and the community around you.
That's so profound. It's what we call aging as well, isn't it? Imagining that is aging. It's not, is it?
No, it's really not. Like, there are people who are aging who are still in tune with their body and connected and things like that. So this has not to do a lot with aging, but I can see how you would make that connection.
Yeah, the phenomenon as known as aging. Yeah.
But if you look at our society, there's a lot of things keeping us from ourselves.
Yes.
Our political structure.
Yeah.
In America and in other countries, the political structure is based on who's lying the least.
Yes. And don't you? You know yourself that something is not quite right here.
Correct.
But you're pulled to the ballot box to, as you say, decide who is lying least.
Yeah. Which one of these people am I supposed to choose to help run our country, but that is lying the least? Well, that is disconcerting to our souls. So we have to detach from that, or else it hurts too much.
Yes. Yeah.
So the energy sensitive people out there, they can't help the situation, but their energy's outside of them, so they feel it. Yeah. And then that detracts from them sort of being present in their own body.
Wow. Okay. Can you tell us more about those connections then? I mean, that's an amazing and profound picture of what goes on for people in displacement and separation, and how we've even structured society to enable and prolong that process by the sound of it. You talked about holding your knee, communing with your body, talking to your body. Can we have some more practical tips along those lines?
Sure. One is people like to lose weight. Well, people lose their phone and it's tragic. So if you're losing part of you, that's not a good thing to be telling your body, going to the gym and saying, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. Yeah. Well, you want to lose something. In our vernacular, that's not a good thing to lose a part of you. So what you want to do is you want to change your body or transmute things inside of your body from one thing to another. For example, if you go and you are doing basic weight training, why not say to ourselves, I want to turn fat into muscle? Or not even take want out. I'm turning fat into muscle. Fat is becoming muscle. Yeah. So why not say that to ourselves while we're lifting weights, or even when we're laying in bed, as opposed to, I want to lose weight? Well, you're just confusing your body. Wow. So that's just an extreme example, but if you do 5 minutes a day, 3 times a week, say fat into muscle. I am changing my fat in my body into muscle. Yes. Or I'm transmuting my fat into energy.
Yes.
Your body's going to be more in line with that, because if not, you feel like you're losing something. And in our culture, no one likes to lose.
So true. But we've totally accepted that one, haven't we, of losing weight. And part of that, I think, is self-judgment, isn't it? And judgment of our bodies as well. And actually creating a kind of war with our very own personal vehicle in life. Can you tell us more about the role of judgment then in self-judgment with this? Because we do it to ourselves, don't we? But we get a baseline for it in the society outside ourselves as well.
Correct. If every image you get on your phone makes you think less about who you are, then you're leaping out of your body and you're putting your energy towards what's in the phone in these visuals. That's a judgment. That's a self-judgment. You're judging them. They're judging you. And judgment, as I've talked about before, that engages the central nervous system. So you're going to go into fight or flight. You're going to go into the first step of the 7 stages of fight or flight if you start judging.
Yeah.
And so judging takes us out of our bodies.
Right.
How do we get back into our bodies and be more present in self? In somatic works, we call it doing a body drop.
Okay.
Dropping into your body, being present inside the cells and not having your body outside of yourself where other people can glean on it, take advantage of it, manipulate it. So the more grounded and dense you are, the better you're going to be for you and your family around you. Spiritual people say a lot about, oh, it's time to come home. Well, I speak more energy than I speak spirituality. And, it's optimal for me to say, hey, it's best for you to bring your energy back into your body. Right? If you bring your energy back into your body is home. It's the only home you truly have. But as I said earlier, this happens a lot with parents, mothers in particular. The energetic outpouring of the milk to the child, once that ends, then there's a need the child will need for the mother's compassion and the mother's maintaining the household and just anything from, a toddler on to adolescence. The mother is expected by our societies to be outside of her body, to be ever present for her children when they need them.
Okay. Yes. On a
right?
constant state of alert. Yes, indeed.
Not only a constant state of alert, but also a constant state of your energy being outside of you for others.
Right.
Well, if you're a parent and your children become adolescents and teenagers, there's going to be a lot less need for them to glean on that type of energy that happened when your children were small.
Yes.
But parents aren't stopped hold at that point that your teenagers doesn't need you the same way. It's not that they stop needing you. They stop needing you in different ways, right? Well,
I get it. I mean, we've worked with these people, haven't we? Possibly in a work situation, somebody whose children have grown up, but that energy is still operating, and they're the ones who make sure everyone's looked after at work as well. For example,
that can be a very good example of the over catering, mother, right?
Yeah.
And so the best thing is I tell parents is the best thing you can do when your children get to that adolescent age, that teenager age, is to bring yourself back into your body. They're going to appreciate the family unit more. You're going to self-appreciate more. And there might be less discordance between the two because children of that age, of teenage years, don't want their parents to need them.
Yeah.
They need to have that independent streak. And so you can hold space for your children, but being in the same commingling of energies that you were when they were 3, 4, 5, even 7 or 8 is not the same. You don't go to your kids' high school and cut snowflakes out in the library, but you do when they're young because you want to be part of that. And so it's really best, especially for mothers, to realize the best thing you can do for your teenager is to be present in your own body.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Any other things we can do in this conversation with our own bodies? I mean, you're literally talking to yourself, aren't you, in this situation, in a good way?
You're talking to yourselves, you're talking to the universe, you're trying to make a connection between the two.
Yes. Sorry, I said self rather than cells, but both are true, right? You're talking to yourself and your cells. Yeah.
Both are true. And your energy field and your patterns and your subconscious conditioning.
Yes.
Which is the hardest thing for people to get over. So that living outside of your body for the greater good or the tribe takes a lot out of you. Right? A lot of us are conditioned to always be present for others and less for ourselves. And that's not going to suit the greater good. It's not optimal for you, and it's not optimal for the people that you interact with, right? So living outside your body for the tribe should be rethought in our present day society.
Can I ask you something about that?
Please.
Before we go any further, because there seem to be two parts to the housekeeping of that, if you like. One is that, as you say, it's not good for you or for the tribe that you belong to. And if you change, the tribe notices, doesn't it? So, yeah, great, you do that for yourself. And I'll own this. You change in how you show up in the tribe and how people expect you to be. How does one manage that side of the equation?
It's really tough.
Okay, thank you.
It's really tough. We have that expression, the black sheep of the family.
Yes.
Well, if you look at any new age Instagram account, they're going to tell you that the black sheep of the family is the one that seeks healing and the one that tries to pull away from the patterns that didn't suit them.
Yes.
And that's one of the hardest things that can happen. One of the most challenging realizations that my clients have is to admit to themselves and their younger child self, 3, 4, 5 years old, that their mother was fallible. Because at that age, you take responsibility for what's going on in your household, regardless of what's happening. So if something's off with your mother, if she's unstable or she has mental issues or narcissism or is just not able to cope, the child blames themselves because it's almost impossible for the child to make the mother fallible.
Yes, yes, yes.
And if you as an adult can say, wow, my parent wasn't what I actually expected them to be, it can be so liberating for people. And that's a nice way for people to be able to come back home into their own bodies.
Oh, lovely.
That's one of the ways. One is the body drops. One is doing somatic work that I talk about. And there's different somatic technologies to bring yourself into your body. But I remember working with a client just a couple weeks ago, and we were doing some of the somatic works. And I said, say your name in your body. And we're going to name her Patricia for this.
Yes.
And say, I am Patricia. Or you can do it. Say, I am Carl.
I'm Carl, yeah.
Say your name and then say it into your body like you're telling your cells who you are.
I'm feeling that already. Yeah.
You can say, I am Carl or I am Patricia.
Yes.
And then say it into your lower body, into your abdomen, into your intestines, into your mesentery, which is the sac that holds the intestines. That's very anxious for people.
Oh, the mesentery. Okay. I'm actually doing it now, Scott, and I would, far be it from me to suggest other people do it, but if it's safe to do so, it's good that people try this, right? Listening to this, because they
Very
get a
much.
real
Not if you're driving or operating heavy machinery, as they say. But
if you can, right? You'll get a practical experience of this then, right? Rather than it being a theory.
And you can say, I am statements. I am myself inside my body. I allow my energy to be present inside my body. I give myself permission to be present inside my body. You can say these subtle mantras or these rituals anywhere. While you're rubbing your feet with oil, while you're standing in the shower, while you're waiting in line for the bank, just be present in your body and see what happens. That's the displacement.
Yes.
A lot of the conditioned family issues that happen in our subconscious between birth and 7 cause shadows in our energetic fields inside of ourselves. So if you find your own energy color and you displace it, you move it in and displace those shadows, you're going to find a more refined sense of self and a more dense sense of self. And that's where it's important to come back to the body, your original home. Yeah.
Yes. How can detachment be connection? Detachment is connection. What does that mean?
Detachment is connection. It sounds oxymoronic.
Yes.
But the more you detach from the reasons why your energy is outside your body, the more you can connect to your sense of self and welcome that energy back in.
Got it. Okay.
If you detach from your child who's now 25 years old and is already married, and you're detaching that energy that you felt towards them at 3 years old, that detachment was going to be a connection to yourself.
Yes.
Because the detachment is no longer needed or necessary. So detachment is connection in terms of sense of self and your own personal energy. The more you detach from what no longer serves you, is no longer optimal, or, as I said, from people who are long past dead or out of your lives, if you detach from them, then you have more sense of self and more sense of presence available to you to drop into your own body.
I've experienced that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Another phrase that I'm sure I've heard you use: going inside to see outside. Another slightly sort of contradictory sounding a set of words there. What might that mean? Can you decode that for us? Going inside to see outside.
Yeah, I'm sort of relating what we've been talking about this whole episode to how intuition works for people. I'm trying to bring this full circle. We talked about intuition and now embodiment, and now I'm going to connect the two.
Okay.
So if you go inside to your own body and you're present inside your own body, then you're able to see and sense intuition better. The way I always talk about it is you don't put a satellite dish on an unstable structure. Right? Yes. You don't want to build a huge satellite dish on a shanty shack.
Yes.
And have it just collapse and fall over.
Yeah.
So if people come to me and they want to learn about their own intuition, start with embodiment. The more you go inside, the more you'll be able to see outside.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that want to live up in their higher chakras, 5 and above or 6 and above. Well, if you're not grounded, then you're going to tip over.
Well said. And I think so much of the the public world is in those chakras, isn't it? And so much of what we might call modern communication tends to be in those rational planes and has very little to do with embodiment. So we have to make our own compensation for that, I suppose, don't we? If we talk on social media, it tends to be quite thin and brittle, doesn't it? And up here somewhere.
It can be superficial as well as not grounded, let's just call it.
Yes, but
Yeah,
its
it's
effect,
not really.
its
Yeah.
effect is felt personally, isn't it? It's so fascinating that the social media phenomenon that is quite, new to us is that it is superficial, yet it can hurt quite deeply, can't it? With just the shapes you see on a screen.
It's very relatively new. I
Yes.
mean, it's very relatively new, but yet it's occupying so much of our children's lives and adults as well.
Yes.
And it's based on judgment, as I said, which is not healthy. But
Yes.
aside from that, it keeps us outside of our bodies.
Yes.
It's always keeping us either anticipating or judging or in that fight or flight or in that sympathetic nervous system.
Yes, which in its way is kind of exciting, but it's not sustainable, is it? It's not very healthy.
Not at all sustainable. It should be fleeting, and it's not. It's now consistent, and people's nervous system and children's nervous systems are taking the toll. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that's why I say go inside to see outside. I call it an aperture. Let in your intuition, but allow it to enter not just your upper chakras or your pineal gland, but down in your gut. Have your gut instincts as often as you have your, spiritual aha moments.
Yeah, well said. I'm sure I'm not alone in liking a bit of homework from you. You've given us a lot of practical tips there, and I truly felt what you were talking about. I suspect others will too. But is there anything else we can take with us from this episode?
Well, I think to sum everything up, if you're not in your body, something else is going to be.
Wow. Okay. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that can be a bad thought. That can be something tragic that happened to you as a child. That can be an entity or a thought pattern that has a consciousness from your subconscious. Like if you're not in your body, something else is going to be there and you will feel disjointed. So if you displace it, if you bring your own energy in, choose what your color energy is, choose what your soul life force energy is, and imagine it in your body and it pushing out, just like the eureka moment in the bathtub, pushing out what those shadow thoughts, those shadow energies, that conditioned thinking, you're cleaning out some of the cobwebs of your subconscious. That all happens when you're more present inside your body.
Incredible. And I know you love an analogy, but what immediately comes to mind is what we want and feel best about inside our homes. And in many ways, our body's no different, right? I find that super profound in this conversation. If you don't choose what's there, something else will fill that space. A habit, a pattern, or something just flying about the place, right?
Or something flying about the place. That is a lot of part of my work is people don't realize how many, I dare to say them entities. It's not like in the movies that you're being inhabited by a whole conscious spirit. As I said, it's more like a cockroach's energy that just has one thing to do, and that's kind of to mess you up.
Yeah.
And if it happened in your childhood psyche, it's there and it's maligned now because the reason why it would ever be there is long since gone or passed away.
My goodness. So there's the homework then, until we speak again, is to observe and to fill your own body with what you want to be there, rather than be a host to the untoward and the uninvited.
Be present. As I said, go inside to see outside. And if you're not in your body, something else will be.
Yeah. I mean, that is truly amazing. I'm agog at that. It's so simple and profound and true. It just feels true, doesn't it?
All of those things.
Yeah. I can see that. I can hear that. It's ticking every one of the Claires for me, that. So nice. Scott, thank you so much. Looking forward to speaking to you again soon.
Likewise. And enjoy moving into your bodies, everybody. You've been listening to the Intuitive Energy Podcast with me, Scott Clover. Thanks to Carl Munson for the great discussion and to Corey Tutt for the music you're listening to. In my private practice, I encourage people to heal what holds you back and feel better in your body. If you need more help with that process, I'm available for healing sessions by phone internationally. Visit scottclover.com for more information. Be well, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and solely as a self-help tool for your own use. I'm not providing medical, psychological, or nutrition therapy advice. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat any health problems or illnesses without consulting your own medical practitioner. Always seek the advice of your own medical practitioner and/or mental health provider about your specific health situation. For my full disclaimer, please go to scottclover.com/disclaimer.